Welcome to the Growth Through Adversity podcast, where men are forged, not coddled. Here we dive deep into the path of true transformation in pursuit of physical, mental, spiritual, and temporal growth. We talk training, nutrition, business, mindset, and spirituality. We embrace strength and we loathe ease. We reject weakness in every form and cultivate power, the will to power itself. This is the rebirth of modern man. Raw masculinity, tempered by reason, virtue, and right action, because nothing of value is earned without sacrifice. Let's begin our apotheosis together. All right, so anybody in here got any questions we want to start with?
Yeah, I'll go with one. Hey,
Yeah.
so like I told you last time, I was starting to figure the whole nutrition thing out. No master, but I'm
Yep.
starting to kind of figure it out a little bit and stuff. But one thing that's kind of a mystery to me is like, I see the foods I've got on my meal plan, right?
Yep.
And you got the alternatives down there
Yep.
and stuff. So understand, like if it's a day you're going to go work out, you're going to eat this. Are there some like proteins that are better to eat on in the mornings versus at night? Same with carbs and fats. Is that incorporated into the meal plan that, or is there something that, or does it not matter? They all just digest the same way.
So
You know,
it, that's a great question, honestly. So it does matter to some effect. How much it matters, I think, is something that like we've gone back and forth on quite a bit, and I think it's a lot less than we used to think. But with that being said, like it does matter, and it matters especially when we're talking about like carbohydrates specifically. So proteins, like what I like to do is, and it's kind of unconventional, is and to answer part of that question too, because there's a few questions wrapped up in there, so I'll answer them all. It is built into your meal plan, and the way that we do it is rather than like, and there's a lot of different ways to do stuff, but rather than like, increase your calories on workout days, decrease your calories on off days, I've found this to be very difficult for people to adhere to, especially like when starting a new meal plan as it is and starting to eat cleaner and do like stuff that's already new. We want to simplify that process as much as possible so that it's easier to follow. So what we do is we look at calories on an aggregate level, so in weekly, monthly type of stuff. So your calorie deficit or your calorie surplus is built in to your meal plan naturally, right? So you don't have to eat more or eat less on workout days, because it's already built in and it's just spread out over the course of, a week or a month. Does that make sense?
it does. Yeah.
So that's answer one. Answer two, we're looking more at like meal timing, like a meal timing question, and this does matter. So again, like I think it matters. I mean, we start getting into like really like biohacking and optimizing performance type fields when we talk about this. So like 80% of it is like just get your daily calories, get enough protein, work out. Like that's 80% of it. There might be like a 20% benefit on top of it of what we're going to talk about here. And what it comes down to is that carbohydrates around the workout are fuel, right? So when we eat carbohydrates around the workout, that blood glucose, carbohydrates digest very fast and it ends up as glucose in your bloodstream. When you have glucose in your bloodstream, your body will save the glycogen in your muscles and it will use that first because it's easier to use. It's just there, it's ready to go. So that's one benefit. And so you'll be able to get longer, more intense workouts when we have fast digesting carbohydrates before a workout, say 30 minutes to an hour before a workout, and even intra workout. Like, so I'll drink dextrose during a hard workout, which is, basically just glucose. And then, it's in liquid form. So the body's digesting it very fast, 15, 20 minutes, and it's ending up in the bloodstream. And then you have a constant trickle of blood glucose, so you can kind of spare some of your glycogen stores and get a couple more intense sets and maybe a couple more reps, which matters on a like a very long-term scale. So that's carbohydrates. Like fast digesting carbohydrates before and during the workout are great, especially before. If you're going to do it during, it's definitely going to want to be a liquid form. And then post workout and throughout the rest of the day, we're going to want those higher quality health type carbohydrates, which are going to be the opposite. They're going to be slow digesting carbohydrates. So things that either have a lot of fiber in them, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, they have a starchy matrix. It takes a long time for your body to break them down, releases glucose in small amounts, so you don't get that glucose spike and crash that causes people, and then the subsequent insulin spike and crash that causes problems over time. Um, and then, like whole grains, so brown rice, quinoa, things of that nature, that where the whole grain's still oatmeal, where the whole grain's still intact, because that's going to give you the fuel to kind of restore those glycogen stores that you tapped out during your workout without getting those nasty blood sugar spikes and crashes that are going to cause issues. So that's carbohydrates. Just think fast digesting carbohydrates, white rice, bread, things like that, pastas, things
That's
like
going to
that.
burn.
Yeah, that
Right.
your body's going to burn them during the workout. So if you want to eat them around the workout. And then later in the day when we're away from a workout is we want to have higher quality carb sources. So like potatoes, sweet potatoes, whole grains, you know what I mean? The more quality stuff that's
Right.
going to digest slower. Does that make sense for carbs?
It does.
And then proteins are a little more complicated. So protein takes a lot longer to break down by the body, just like fat does. So if we eat protein 30 minutes before a workout, like you're going to be bloated. Your stomach's going to be need the blood. It's going to be stealing blood from muscles. It's going to be counterproductive. But with that being said, like there is definitely something to eating protein pre-workout because if you think about it, like the way your body digests, like most of us drink or eat protein after the workout, which is good too. But like after the workout, it's going to take your body an hour or longer to digest that protein. And after a workout, your insulin levels are up. Your body can really use those nutrients post-workout, right? Your body's much more sensitive to insulin, so it's able to carry more nutrients into the cells. So what I personally like to do is I use a really high quality whey protein isolate. So isolate is the least, it is the purest form of whey. It doesn't have, it has much less lactose in it. It has much less of additives in it. So your body's able to digest it much faster. It's basically as close to amino acids as you can get. So I'll do that about 45 minutes before my workout. I'll do a scoop of whey isolate. That doesn't affect my workout. And then I'm in there and then, I go work out for a couple of hours as my body is getting to the point where it's starting to digest that protein, now I'm in a really good anabolic window where my body can use that protein. And, the insulin levels are up, the body's sensitive to insulin. So all those amino acids are getting hammered into muscle cells. Does that make sense?
It does. So like a lot. So basically, all that stuff's getting worked during the day, but
Yep.
when you're sleeping, that's kind of when the magic is happening, isn't it?
Yep.
Kind of like the fat burning. Because man, I'll be taking a piss freaking many times during the night,
Yep.
and I don't have any prostate issues. I don't have any bladder issues,
Yep.
you know. And my wife, she's a nurse, and so she was like, "That's when your body's flushing out all that
Yep.
shit." Is that
Absolutely.
am I on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's your body is in repair mode while you sleep, especially deep sleep. So, protein synthesis is happening, to a lesser degree, lipolysis, fat burning is happening. Testosterone levels are highest, HGH levels are highest. All of these anabolic hormones are being secreted, and so your body is in its rebuilding phase. And yeah, like what people don't realize about exercise is that there's a ton of like metabolic byproducts that come with it. So when you're in there exercising, you're breaking down muscle tissue, there's lactate, there's uric acid, there's all of this stuff that gets secreted in the breakdown of tissue that ends up in your bloodstream. And then it's your liver and your kidneys' jobs to flush that out. And that's exactly how they flush it out. And another thing is like in that same tent, that's why I always recommend NAC and N-acetylcysteine to all my clients because you're putting extra stress on the liver just by training. Everybody thinks alcohol, drugs as the liver stressors, you know what I mean? Medication, those are the main ones, but the same process that stresses your liver is caused by training, right? Because you have all these metabolic byproducts in your bloodstream that your bot that are toxic that your body
Mm-hmm.
has to filter out, and that's the liver's job and that's the kidney's job. And so yeah, it would absolutely make sense that like I never thought of it like that, but it does make sense, that your body's just filtering stuff out. And then just as we get older, we're just don't get as I don't sleep through the night anymore either. You just don't get as good at holding it as you were. I think it wakes you up, and then once you're up, you're like, yeah, well, I gotta go now. So that's part of the process too.
Yeah. Hmm.
Does that answer the questions?
All of them. Appreciate it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Anybody else in here got any questions? Hi, Cheryl. Haven't seen you for a while. Hope you're doing well. Awesome. Cool. I am going to throw you guys on mute here. And I am going to answer these. What do I have? I got one, two, three, four, five. I picked the five that I felt like would have the broadest, kind of relevance, right? Out of some of the Q&As. These are ones I was not able to respond to on like my Instagram story or in Reels. So I'm going to respond to them now, and I'll tag these people if I can remember their usernames when I post maybe snippets of it or some way. But either way, they were great questions. Like I said, I just sometimes when I put a Q&A up, I'll get like over 100 questions and I'm just not able to respond to them all. So I try to pick out the best ones that are relevant to a lot of people and do these Q&As periodically. So Alex Mitchell asked me, how do I keep up intensity without wrecking my joints at 53? Which is a great question, right? Because like I always talk about, we want to train hard, we need to train hard, we need to train high intensity within a few reps of failure. Um, but training like that is probably can be some of the most demanding type of training on your joints under certain circumstances. And that's the under certain circumstances is the caveat there. So number one, like intensity itself isn't necessarily bad for your body. Probably the roughest thing on your joints is going to be lifting at a very high intensity with very heavy loads, right? It's just going to put the most amount of stress on the joints. It's going to put the most amount of abuse on the joints, the muscles, the tendons. Not a bad thing. In fact, like I really think that most people in their 30s, 40s, even 50s should really, really focus on building muscle. And that requires moving heavy loads and getting stronger because there is going to reach a point in your training where you get to a point where you have to kind of transition away from that type of training and look at more of like maintaining your health, maintaining your longevity. Like there comes a point in your train, in all of our training journeys where that shift has to happen, right? I 53, I mean, you're probably not there yet. You probably have another like, a good 5, 6, 7 years where you can still push it pretty hard before we really need to start being careful. But the best thing that you can do is increase the rep range and decrease the load. So but while maintaining intensity. So the real key here when we're talking about intensity is we're talking about taking our sets to within 1 to 2 reps of failure, right? And you can do that at 2 reps, you can do that at 4 reps, or you can do that at 10 or 12 reps. 10 or 12 reps is going to be a lot less just aggregate abuse on your joints and a lot less risk of injury on your joints. You're going to have a little bit less of a strength benefit, but you're still going to have some good strength benefits. But yeah, so increasing the rep range there. And then number two is going to be mechanics. Like at the end of the day, lifting heavy doesn't hurt you. Lifting improperly hurts you, right? So if you have good form and you bench 315, it's not inherently dangerous. If you have bad form and you're ego lifting and you try to go lift 315 and you could probably barely safely lift 255, like it's a recipe for disaster. So working within what you're capable of doing while pushing yourself, that's kind of becomes like as you get more advanced, like you know where your limits are and you push those limits, but you push those limits carefully, is going to be the key. And then, like I said, raising the rep ranges is going to be probably pretty smart for the most time. And then consolidating the lower rep range work to like strength blocks where we're not doing it all the time. We're kind of do it for a month and then take a few months break and let everything kind of recover and fully heal. So that was a great question, but like, yeah, you don't need to back off. You just need to, like I say, train smarter too. Like think of recovery, think of sleep, think of nutrition, think of supplements, think of like what you're putting into your body outside of training, the stress that you're putting on your body outside of training, because it's all going to add up. That was a great question though. So number two is Steve R. He asked, I saw good results on keto/carnivore. I lost 36 pounds, but coming back, I gained I'm guessing you meant coming off. I gained nearly 50. I'm thinking about trying again, but I've heard you talk negatively about it. Can you give me some more info? So the gist of that, as I'm reading it, is that he did keto/carnivore, maybe a blend of the two, lost a bunch of weight, lost almost 40 pounds, and then came off of it and gained the weight back plus some, right? Paid a little interest with it. You know what I mean? And that's actually a super common cycle that we see with fad diets like keto carnivore. So what happens with keto carnivore? Why does it work? Because before you were drinking soda, you were eating a ton of carbohydrates, you were probably eating, who knows, 4,000 calories a day, 3,500 calories a day, 5,000 calories a day. Then you switched over to only eating meat or only eating meat and nuts and you know what I mean, maybe a few berries. So what happened was your calories went from up here to down here, and you had this amazing fat loss response where your body just started melting fat because it didn't have enough fuel. It was basically starving, and you lost a ton of weight. You probably felt great in the beginning because as the weight was coming off, there was all kinds of good things happening in your body. And then eventually, what I'm guessing is you reached a point where you got tired of only eating, ribeyes and chicken every day, and you went back and started eating chips and shit like that. And you probably went back to doing exactly what you were doing before you went on keto carnivore, because that's what you're comfortable with. And what happens now, though, is that in that process of under eating, now we've been eating however long you're on it, a year, 6 months, 2 years. You were down so far under your like maybe probably 1,500 calories, 1,600 calories, way down below even your maintenance calories. So what happened was your metabolism down regulated. Your metabolism slowed down due to the fact that you were starving yourself. And then you went back to eating a whole bunch of high energy, high threshold junk food, and your metabolism slower, your body's in fat storage mode. So that's where the interest came from. Not only did you blow back up to where you were, but you also added some weight to it because your metabolism is now all fucked up from these diets. And this is why I talk negatively about them. Don't get me wrong. Look, I've had clients on keto carnivore. I'm not saying that you can't make progress on them. I'm not saying that I don't even think they're inherently like terribly unhealthy for you. The main problem I have with them is they're not sustainable for 99% of humans. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you don't only want to eat fucking meat anymore and you're going to eat other shit. And if you don't learn how to lose weight without doing radical fad diet crazy shit, then you're going to go back to doing what you've always done, and that's going to make you how you've always been. And obviously, like you're on a journey and you're trying to change. So I would recommend, based on your prior experience with it, not doing keto carnivore again and trying to lose weight through a calorie deficit. And part of that process is probably going to be you're going to have to commit to 6 months to a year of eating at maintenance calories to re-optimize your metabolism and speed your metabolism back up to undo the damage that you did with the keto carnivore. So good luck. If you need any help with that, Steve, I would be happy to help. This one was a little bit more of a personal question. Your story is super inspirational. I'm 3 months clean. That's awesome. Congratulations. And starting over, I'm curious what actually changed for you. Was there like one moment or was it a slow build? Tom L. So great question and congratulations on the sobriety. That is fucking awesome. Stick with it. You're in the hardest phase. It gets easier after about the year mark. 2 years, you won't even think about it anymore. But yeah, you're in the trenches, man. So for me, it was definitely just like one moment. There was just like, I reached a point where it was like, I'm done. I've been doing this for long enough and it's got me to this spot that I hate. I don't like the person I've become. I don't like what I'm doing and I just need to change it. And that literally at that moment, I said, I'm not going to do drugs anymore. And like, I literally have not done drugs since then. That was 15, 16 years ago. So everybody's different. Some people it's very, there's an on-off cycle and, but for me, that was just kind of how I operate. When I decide on something, I just decide on it and I go all in. That was same true for bad things and true for good things. So I'm not saying that even in like a totally good way. It's just like I'm very extreme one way or the other. So yeah, for me, man, it was just like I had that moment where it was like I'm just disgusted with myself. I'm disgusted with where I'm at and I want to change it. And so like I just decided to change it. And I knew the main thing I had to do to change it was get clean. Like that was obvious. That's obvious to you. It's obvious to everybody. So I knew that was where I needed to start. There was a whole ton of other work that I had to do after that, but like that was if I didn't fix that one thing, nothing else would ever fall into place. So yeah, man, hang in there. I wish you luck. You're in the thick of it, and I think you'll do all right. We got another one. We got a late comer. We got a late bloomer. CJ, what's up, dude? Um, all right. So here's a coaching question. So you went from coaching in a gym to running an online brand. What was the hardest part of that jump? I'm trying to make the transition myself, but I'm struggling. Yeah, it's fucking tough. And their username was the White Knight. I couldn't find a real name to that account. Um, so yeah, man, it's difficult making that transition because you're working like in the gym and it's very time extensive, time demanding. You have clients that you have to serve. You're meeting with people. It's spread all throughout the day. It's incredibly chaotic. You're trying to make sure that you have enough in-person clients to pay your bills, while also trying to build this other business on the side. And a lot of coaches just get stuck in that spot right there, and they don't really do either one of them really good. So for me, it was just like when I quit my first job and started the in-person personal training business. Like as soon as I got like my first two clients and I was like, okay, this is something that I can actually do. I just quit my job. And I was like, well, if I got two clients while doing this, working a 40-hour a week job that I fucking hate, imagine how many clients I could get and how much better I could serve them if I could just like do this full time, right? So that was my mentality. And it was like, it was risky as fuck because those two clients were only paying me $800 a month. And yeah, it was like, and it was not enough. So it was like, I have to, and then, but then that puts your back against the wall. And when your back's against the wall, you work harder, you grind harder, you make shit happen. So I did get more clients and it did grow up and it became a very like successful in-person business. And literally when I did the online transition, there was a point where I reached the same thing where it was like when the two started competing against each other, and it became that I felt like I wasn't able to do either one of them as good as I needed to. I was like, well, this is the direction that I want to go, that I'm most passionate about at this current moment. So I just went all in on that. And I resolved all of the obligations that I had in person. And you know what I mean? I told people we're not going to renew in person. If you want to come online with me, it's totally cool. If you don't, I totally understand. But I just made that jump, right? So at some point, I think you really just have to decide. And I mean, obviously, like be tactical about it. You know what I mean? Like, don't get kicked out of your apartment or anything, but you really do. You're never going to be able to do like if you're spread too thin, we don't operate well. We operate well when we can really focus and put everything into one thing. So that would be my advice there. And last question here, Eric Harris asked, what's the one thing your fighting background taught you that regular trainers just don't get? It's actually a great question. I think there was not just one single thing, but if nothing else, what made me good at fighting was that like is honestly what's made me good at business. And it's just like that I just don't quit. I don't like failure doesn't really bother me like it bothers a lot of people. To me, failure is just like a point of growth. It kind of just shows you the things that you need to work on and what you need to iterate more and more and more to get better. And then you just have that like one thing you need to work on and just like really master. You know, like if you lose a fight because you got rear naked choked, then it's like, okay, cool. Well, that's what I need to do. I need to just drill how to get out of a rear naked choke for the next 3 months until like I'm the best, until you just physically cannot rear naked choke me. So like, and that's just like always been my mindset. So that's a huge part of it is like I just like I don't have any real aversion to failure and I'm not afraid to take like really big risks. That's what fighting is all about, is like taking calculated but dramatic risks. And then also just like this, the other thing that made me good at fighting was I was never the most athletically talented. I was never the most like, you know what I mean? Just this, the best natural, some people are just naturally gifted. I didn't have like a great wrestling pedigree where I was like, high level college wrestling pedigree. I didn't start doing jujitsu when I was 3 years old or anything. But I was tough and I outworked everybody. Like that was it. I was like, I'm like, if we're gonna stand in the pocket and we're gonna fight, like I will out fucking grit you. Like I will take I will take as much damage as I need to dish it out. And I kind of enjoy that. And I'll outwork you. I'll spend more hours in the gym. You know what I mean? I'll put in more reps. And it's like, so, and then you go into the fight or you go into the business and it's like, well, if I lose, I did everything I possibly could. Like I worked twice as hard as anybody else worked. And if I still didn't win, then it's like literally he was just the better man that day. And that kind of ties into that kind of ties into the lack of failure aversion. If you're working hard enough and you're doing everything in your power, if you fail, then it's like, okay, cool, that's just the lesson I needed to learn. So I guess that was more than one thing. That was probably two things, but those are yeah major things that I took from fighting and into my personality and into the business world, and into training and how I coach my clients and everything else. So those were good questions. Like I said, I try to answer everybody that does the questions with me. Sometimes I don't get to them, but I usually circle back. All right, guys, if anybody else has any other questions before we close it out, you can unmute yourself and ask them. Um, and I will give you guys a couple seconds. And if not, that's totally cool too. I appreciate you guys showing up. All right. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for showing up. You guys have a great rest of your day.